Regular meeting of the Old Saybrook Water Pollution Control Authority on Monday, January 12th at 7:30 p.m. George, would you call the roll, please?
Michelle. Elsa Payne, Chairman, is absent. Ian Featherstone, Vice Chairman.
Present.
George Decoy, Secretary, is present. Chuck Worley.
Present.
John F. Claffey Jr.
Present.
Jason Becker.
Present.
Robert Mazzell, absent. Peter Stump, alternate.
Present.
Present. And Robert Singer, alternate.
Present.
Roll call has been taken.
All right, in the absence of Elsa Payne, we will seat one of the alternates, and I believe it's Bob's turn today.
Sure.
Is that correct?
Miss Olson has to as well.
Oh, you're right, they're both seated.
I
Thank
was
you.
going to say, who else are you writing at?
Thank you. All right, you're both seated. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, very good. All right, we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a motion for the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of December 8th.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 8th.
Second.
Any discussion, comments, corrections noted? Okay. All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Thank you. All right, comments from members. Any comments today?
I have comments. I'm going back to when we started our project, our program, sewers and whatnot. 3 towns were involved, Clinton, Westbrook, and Saybrook. And I follow papers and whatnot regularly, and I have not seen much in all these years on Clinton, Westbrook, but I'd like to make the following announcement, which is new news put out by Clinton. The Water Pollution Control Commission of Clinton is pleased to announce a new WPCC Public Involvement Committee. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I'm going to read the several points that they were going to pursue. The town of Clinton has been working toward a comprehensive solution to wastewater pollution for 40 years. And they go ahead to come up with the direction that they're going to pursue. The WPCA involvement program, which is called in Clinton, has designed to create meaningful dialogue on the issue. In the first phase of the public involvement program, the WPCA will be hosting public neighborhood by neighborhood workshop. Each workshop will focus on the concerns and possible solutions for a neighborhood. Workshops will begin this morning. I'll go down to the second phase of the public involvement program. The WPCA will reach out to the rest of the town. This will involve dialogue with other town boards and commissions, townwide mailings, and more workshops. And this one is scheduled to begin late spring or summer. Public input is essential to the process. The proposed plan developed by the WPCC and its engineers will identify technical recommendations and appropriate measures for the town. But many details will require public input. The first neighborhood workshop will be for the Rocky Ledge area. These are properties west of Route 81 from Happy Acres Road north to Rocky Ledge Drive, including homes by Route 81. The second neighborhood workshop will be for the Long Hill area. This includes property on Long Hill Road and most roads that connect to Long Hill Road. And a meeting for Long Hill has been scheduled at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 17th, Green Room of Andrews Memorial Town Hall. Additional workshops will be available as information becomes available. So I just wanted to pass that on, that Clinton is starting to work on the program itself. Thank you all.
Thanks, George. I don't know if anybody else saw it, but the New London Day had an article about the old lime, WPCA, and and what they're revising some of their plans, but it was a good article. They are considering an option now to pipe everything to New London. So we should keep an eye on that, because I think we'll all see how costly that's going to be. But something to look for. Okay, any other comments? All right. I'll now open up to public comment. Anybody like to speak today? Quiet.
I'm waiting for results.
Yeah,
Thought that might be the case.
that's why they put public comment first,
All right,
method to the madness.
we'll move on to agenda item 7, staff reports. Gracia,
Yes.
are you going to talk about the budget first? Or would you like to just?
Well, can we do the housekeeping on the December report for the operating budget?
Sure.
We all have copies. There's one thing I would like to note, because it's going to have something to do or have an impact on the 2015-2016 proposed operating budget. The current budget, if you go down to contractual, you see legal counsel, which currently we have expended 11,000 and change to date. You have, as you can see on the financial reports, an invoice that you're going to be asked to vote on for $86,75.45 for Laughlin Fitzgerald. And that is clearly going to take us over that budget line item. We're still okay, because we've only used 59% of our budget, and as long as we can keep that bottom line within the right parameters, then we're okay. But I'm going to come back at you regarding that line item when we get to the 2015-2016 proposed operating budget.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
All right, can I have a motion to accept this operating budget for December?
So made.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any questions on it or any further discussion?
Just a note that it's dated January 6, 2015.
All right, if there's no other discussion or questions, all those in favor of approving this budget, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
The second thing on my list, the Shipman and Goodwin billing rates for 2015. It's a letter we receive every year. I thought you might like a copy of it, so I included it in the packet. Uh, 2015-2016 proposed operating budget. We received the memorandum, despite the fact that it's dated on December 8th. We received it later in that week, so after our December meeting. And this is the first meeting that we have had since we received this, and unfortunately, it is due by the end of the day on Wednesday. So, I forwarded you a copy of the memorandum so that that came from the first selectman, so you could see what the parameters that were set for us. The second thing in the package is the form that is required for submittal. The third section is the narrative that goes with that form. And the final is the note that the format that we have used for the last several years with notes as to increases, decreases, things that have stayed the same, and why.
Okay, at this point, would you like a motion to act on this budget?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we need a motion to act on the budget.
Motion to accept this proposed budget for submittal to the first selectman and the finance department.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Grace, you want to explain a little bit more about it?
Right. Under personnel, it was across the board for the entire town, employees of 2.25%. And so that is the increase. Fixed charges are paid through the town general budget. Expenses and supplies, we reduced the dollar amount by $3,500 under office supplies. We just found over time that we simply aren't using that much money, plus the fact reallocated so that if they were office supplies or those kinds of non-tool type supplies that were for the office downstairs, we charged them off to the office downstairs, so it kind of equalized everything out. No change on the education. We went back, we looked at the mileage over the last 4 years because we're very close this year. And we have been very, very close every year to about $2,500. So we added 500 to 2,500, and for no reason other than arbitrary fudge factor. No change in the advertising notices or postage. No change in the pump out program. No change in the benefit assessment software and supplies. The equipment and supplies for downstairs was increased by $1,000. We anticipate that we may have a couple more employees perhaps over the next year that are inspectors or thing. We may need to, we're down one, we may need to replace that one. So it seemed that we might require some additional equipment given the number of properties that we would like to complete in the next year. The vehicle equipment, fuel, no increase. The town buys the diesel and the gasoline in bulk, and we work off the dollars. And traditionally, we've been over our allocation, at least as that first part of it, but not by a huge amount, so we saw no reason to change that. The site evaluation supplies, we've increased that by $2,500 for two reasons. The test hole seed and hay is increasing, but the more important increase has to do with groundwater monitoring wells, which will require some PVC piping fittings, gravel. These groundwater monitoring wells, Jim Vanoli tells me, will be probably required by CRAD in some of the new areas that we're going into. So he felt that this was the appropriate increase. Um, The big truck, the WPCA GMC truck, was increased. It requires, well, I have a laundry list of, if you really want to know, of I was provided with a list of what was required for maintenance of the truck. It will need a new exhaust, turbo, the full service, some unanticipated miscellaneous for an additional $5,800. In addition to what we normally have. The Ford van, we increased it by $1,250. It has all the standard things plus all the things that can go wrong in a van that has 130,000 miles on it before the odometer broke. The Crown Vic just keeps pushing along. It has 150,000 miles on it. It's amazing, it starts in the morning. Those three items are combined under vehicle maintenance in the budget that we submit. So hopefully there's enough fudge factor in that to cover the demise of the Crown Vic. The Kubota trailer combo was increased by $4,250. The excavator needs tracks and grease and its annual service, and it needs new teeth for its bucket. We'll need tires and a variety of other stuff for the trailer. So it was the estimate of the site manager that these would be appropriate levels for that equipment. The legal and the engineering and the website hosting. No change in the website hosting. It covers maintenance and annual maintenance fees that have maintained their level. For want of anything else to do, we rarely use the engineering, so I moved 5,000 of that up into legal. But it's apparent that $19,000 or 2015, 2016 is probably woefully inadequate. I have had conversations with Lisa as to how we manage this. Because if we prevail in the appeals, then it will be submitted to be reimbursed. And then it's just a paper transfer. Bob Fish does a paper transfer. But until that time, it is absorbed by our operating budget. And as you can see, as soon as you approve this Laughlin Fitzgerald, which is for December, with 6 months more to go, we are way over that budget line. So we are in discussions with that, and what it was kind of left with was that we would submit it like this, and then when we sit down with the Board of Selectmen, deal with the issue in some more detail and giving them some time to figure out whether they want us to simply go over and they'll cover it some other way, or whether they want to try and anticipate what it's going to cost. But we don't have a feel for how long this is going to take, nor really how much it's going to cost.
Right.
So it's sort of like, so I think what I, at this point, I am comfortable turning that particular line item over to the Board of Selectmen to figure out how they want to handle this particular legal issue.
Okay, well, we've returned back money each year, so there's usually something left.
Well, the other thing is that we're going to be turning, maybe not a lot, but we'll be turning some back this year as well. But it's almost as if we prevail, we have this little pot of money, which I'm tracking very carefully, that we can requisition and get back to the town. So how they want to handle that from an accounting standpoint, I'm leaving it up to Lisa.
So if we prevail, does that money go back into the WPCA budget, or does it go into the general fund, or where?
When you requisition, the money goes directly from the state into the sewer avoidance fund, the 210 account. What my preliminary discussions with Bob Fish were that once that occurred, the dollar amount would come out of the 210 account and be transferred to the general government account, or whatever account sub-account that Bob was using.
So the WPCA budget wouldn't see it. Once it's used, it's used. So really, we need to have enough in that line item, one way or the other, whether we get reimbursed or not. That's what it sounds like.
Well, that's been my position, but because all the parameters are just like being carved in chocolate pudding. I mean, you just cannot get a feel for when this is going to go to quote-unquote court. I understand it's arbitration or something like that, but when it is being dealt with by the court structure, when that's going to happen, we have no sense of that. It could be this spring, it could be next spring, it could be 2 years from now. I mean, we just don't know, and I'm not getting any answers on that because I don't think there are any. And what the cost of that
Well, I have a question and comment. Okay, so if the town prevails in the suit,
right.
it is then clean water funds eligible.
Yes.
Okay. So they'll reimburse us for that, but in the end, the town still ends up paying. We still have to pay back that money. We have to pay back 75% of that money, prevail or not.
Right.
Okay, so that money, even though clean water funds will cover it now, we have to pay it back. The town has to pay it back. Because the state's only going to cover 25% of that in the end.
It's like a big circle.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is not free money. It is money that we have to pay back. My second.
Well, about 25% of it is going to be
Yeah,
free.
25% is free. Okay, 75% goes to the taxpayer. The taxpayer is going to have to pay.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
The second comment that I have, I mean, I saw the breakdown of the last invoice. I mean, this guy is sparing no expense. He's going out, he's getting expert this, and, you know, $500, you know, $500 for this expert, $500 for that expert, you know, on and on and on. He's sparing no expense. So this could really get out of hand fast unless we get a handle on it. I mean, I don't know at what point he's gonna cost us more than what the suits are for. But it's probably coming to that point pretty quick. It's coming.
That is not sort of part of my toolbox.
It's
Yeah,
not a
so
part of
I-
your duties, I understand that.
No, I can't, I don't have a helpful
You don't even have
comment.
to answer it. I'm not really even making the comment to you, I'm making it to the board, so. It's our responsibility eventually.
All right, are there any other questions or comments on the budget? Does anybody see any reason? I'm comfortable enough because we have turned money back that we usually don't spend everything, and it's always been the case that it doesn't have to be on the line item that you spent it for. So if we overspend the legal, it can come from.
It still has
However-
to be in professional services. It has to be in that category.
However, if you,
I'm not sure about that. Grace.
no,
I don't believe so.
that, okay. The bottom line is, currently is $274,804 for 2015, 2016. So long as we do not go over that number, we're okay.
So
But-
we can cross-pollinate into
We
expenses
can
and supplies.
cross-pollinate, but this is, because of the time constraints and everything, it's not carved in granite, but I have absolutely no problem if you would like to increase that legal non-clean water fund line item from the 19,000 to another number. That is absolutely not a problem. If you want to submit it at a higher number, knowing that we have this particular problem. The worst thing that's gonna happen is either the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance is gonna reduce it. But it is your option.
I'm of the opinion to keep it where it is, to keep it something to strive for. And if we exceed the legal expenses, then it means we have to look very closely at everything else we're spending. So we have to keep our budget under control.
My point is, I think we need to monitor it, just watch it, to make sure what's happening is what we, as best as we, the best we can do to keep it under control. If I hear you also saying that the 10,000 for engineering is not likely to be used, so we have that cushion also, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
But-
So if it went to 29, we still have that covered in the budget. So, you know, we have that growth, but you're right, it's a, nobody can predict how long it's gonna take or, you know, what the legal path will become. And Bob, I agree, I don't know where we draw, I don't know how you draw that line, where it's, you know, cheaper not to than how you make that decision.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the other part of this is that this is kind of being handled by the town manager, or not the town manager, but the Board of Selectmen, rather than us. So we're not really controlling what we spend. We have no idea. For us, it's an open book.
And I think that's a good reason for us to take the path suggested, that the Board of Selectmen and make an adjustment in the future as
I mean, the money's gonna have to come from somewhere, so
Right.
if they wanna spend it, they're gonna have to find a way to get it. So I kind of agree to leave it at the 19, and if they think they need more, which I am absolutely positive they're gonna need more, let them find a way to get it.
I just wanted you to know that you had that option.
It gives the WPCA something to work towards.
Right.
And we have turned money back every year, probably to the tune of, guessing, $30,000.
Yeah,
Okay,
on average.
on average. So there's that.
Mayor can burn that up.
Ian, I'm okay with you know, leaving the budget the way it is, provided all the players involved know what the situation is. and we have the paper trail. So there isn't any amnesia, down the road.
Well, I can tell you that everything that backs up this that you see every month goes to Lisa. Lisa sees it probably before I do.
I would just comment, I think as I had before, this law firm is charging half of the cost of our usual legal attorneys, and the associated costs and bills have been very reasonable to date. But, First Selectman is definitely in touch with that situation.
Right.
So I think if there was anything untoward or unreasonable, that he would pick it up in a heartbeat as a letter.
I had one other question. You mentioned the memo that talked about the future rates. Are those dramatically different than this year's rates for the legal, for shipment?
No, they tend to go up about $10. He gives them to you in ranges.
Right.
Um,
For last year's ranges, within a
His-
few percent of this year's range. of last year's
Well,
range.
John Wordham wrote the letter, and John indicates that his rate has gone up $10 an hour. I have not as yet received an invoice from Shipman and Goodwin for January.
Okay.
So therefore, when you look at the invoices, you could have 4 partners working in that month, and all 4 partners have different hourly rates, ranging anywhere from $275 to $390. And so until we get one of those bills, I won't know how dramatic it is, but at least there's one example that the senior partner who's in charge of our legal work or supervises our legal work is getting $390. I would guess that Bruce Chudwick would be the same because he was also at $380. But when you get down a few little steps below, it's hard to tell until I see a bill. And when I see it, you'll see it.
Any other questions on the budget? Any other comments, concerns? All right, okay, so I will call the vote on all those in favor of accepting this operating budget submission for 2015, 2016, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay.
Thank you. My final at this point is the invoice from Laughlin Fitzgerald for professional services for December 2014 in the amount of $8,675.45.
Okay, do I have a motion to pay the non-construction invoice for the legal bills for Laughlin Fitzgerald?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All right, just as a comment, Grace, it's irrelevant because it's not part of the motion, but it says December 2015 on this piece of paper in front of you. It's December 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My apologies.
All right, any other discussion or questions on this bill? Bob?
No, I have no comments other than what I made.
All right, all those in favor of paying this bill to Laughlin Fitzgerald in the amount of $8,675.45, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Okay. Abstained? Okay.
That's all for now.
Okay. Robbie, coordinators report?
This is Buster O'Neill, which you got it. They're not doing a lot except the big packages. Nothing extraordinary. Maple Avenue 1, Maple Avenue 2. And that's primarily what I'm working on. I'm spending most of my time tracking Maple Avenue. We've got 27 outstanding, what we call non-responders, and we're going after them. So they've got their final notice from Jim Monopoly, and when the guys are out there, they'll have their applications, and they'll knock on the door, politely and say, you'd like to get you in the program, how do you make a decision? So in one way or another, it's a decision from them.
Okay.
So it's hard to track even now, I'm collecting the data from the field trip. So they're doing all the soil testing, they're going out in the houses and doing in-house inspections of the photographs. So they do the photographs, I put them all, I manage them, compile them, put them up on, send them up to Plus Money. So it's all the photos, and now I'm taking the field notes, scanning them, organizing them, same thing. So we'll be ready to go with Maple Avenue when we get the funding. And the other stuff is just upgrade standards. I'm supporting upgrade standards and enforcement, whatever type of enforcement issues. That's pretty much how I'm spending my time.
Okay.
Question. On the, where do we stand with the bidding process for the next 2 projects?
That all depends on the Clean Water Fund.
Where do we stand with the Clean Water Fund?
Well, Steve will go over that in his report, but right
Okay.
now.
We're on
So
hold
Meadowwood,
right-
Indian Hill.
We're on hold right now pending the funding for Clean Water Fund.
So they're lining up
For
like
phase two.
planes. We have Ingham Hill, Meadowwood is ready to go. Maple Avenue 1 is ready to go. Maple Avenue 2 is Ingham Hill, Meadowwood 1 is
Right.
ready, it's done, it's been approved by DEP. And then Meadowwood 2 is just about ready to go. And then we're pulling together Maple, so they're all being lined up as a package.
But they can't
When we get the
go to
funding,
bid until it's
We can't go out to
approved.
bid because we do not have phase 2
Yeah.
Clean Water Fund. And Stephen's working on that.
Okay.
But we're not stopping, I mean, the guys are doing.
Yeah,
their
I know,
investigation.
they've been ready to go for quite some time.
But our field crew is working, and we're all working, so.
If I have an additional question, should I ask it now or with the program managers?
Now it's good.
Do we have any indication as to when phase 2 funding approval is going to happen?
I'll get into that in a minute.
Okay, and potentially, will Deep take into account this delay as far as schedule is concerned?
Yeah, those are all good questions. I'll talk about it. I was away over the holiday, but there's a lot going on, and I'll start with enforcement. This board approved the Second Amendment to the Public Health Service Agreement. That has not been signed yet because both Jim Monopoly and the CRAD board want to have the joint defense agreement in place before they do that. And Jim had offered, I think I mentioned, to have his attorney look at it rather than have us guess at what they're looking for in terms of the joint defense agreement. So both the attorneys have it at this point. It's in progress. The enforcement letter is going to have to wait until those are set. I've taken a stab at condensing 3 letters that we had that were intended to address different timeframes, different offenses. It's really come down to, I think, a single letter that we may be able to use. That'll get finalized when we have the other pieces in place. The last item is the upgrade standards, which is on the agenda tonight. And the issue there is just clarification of the leaching section to match what our program policies and procedures have been. So we have that in place as well. With regard to the ongoing work, Robbie has mentioned Maple Avenue North is a little slower than the other areas. The crew's done a very good job of doing the work that they can with applications that have come in. So that's pretty much done, and now they have time to go back to those 25 or so people who haven't responded, get them into the program or get them to determine what the course of action they're going to take. But it's taken, I think, more time both from the office staff and our field staff to get to the same point in this particular area. I've asked DEEP for kind of a continued approval that they gave for emergency repairs prior to phase one, because we have some emergency repairs for which there's no contract in place and no clean water funding available. So we'd like to help those people, and I've asked for those funds for that reason. We also terminated a contract with Jim Smolin as of January 1st, partly because of reduced workload right now and partly because of personnel issue that came up. It doesn't affect our operating capability at the moment, and we will fill that at some point in time when we know exactly what we're going to do and when the workload determines. Brings me to the primary effort that I put in the last few months has been planning for phase two. And we did what we could, as you know, during phase one to prepare. In addition to a rather intense ending to phase one to get all the construction done, we still went out to look at some community systems. We were able to look at some potential land for dispersal sites for community systems. We got through the RFQ process. We're now down to 2 engineering firms that are ready to go for a scope of work that we have developed. So we did a number of things, and after phase one ended, I put together a proposal including a scope of work for phase two, and that went to DEEP just before Christmas. The proposal was needed because after 6 years of implementation and really 10 years since the planning process, it was time to take a step back and reevaluate what was accomplished, what issues occurred, what still makes sense, and what we needed to do for phase two. As you're aware, we put in an application for the money based on a previous plan, which was really not something we could continue doing. It just didn't match reality. So we find ourselves now in a position where we need to really get everything in sync. DEEP quickly came back, wanted a more specific proposal, reminded us that the stipulation for phase two has a completion date of September 30th. 2015, which is really not possible. And in addition to that, the funding for phase two is on hold pending the definition of what we're going to do in the near future. So all of those things need to get reconciled. And I wanted the board to be aware there are some very high level and serious issues that need to get resolved before we can move forward. All the stakeholders, the lawyers, us, we all have, I think, legitimate issues to resolve, and we're moving quickly. This Thursday, we're having a meeting with DEEP. Our lawyers will attend. I don't know how many other people besides Dennis will be there from DEEP. It's possible Carl will attend as well, depending on the nature of the meeting. But we hope to quickly get to resolution on some of those issues so that we can start to sort out the practical issues of how do we keep the money flowing. As Bob mentioned, we have contracts ready to go. We have our conventional work planned for a year. So we need to keep that going and we need to get the funding for it. But it's going to require some cooperation on DEEP's part to say, okay, we recognize you have all these things to reconcile. This is how we can structure it so that it starts to work. But there's no question, circumstances have changed. 6 years ago, there wasn't global warming, there wasn't sea level rise issues, and coastal storms that can impact the kind of systems we put in. So spending the money to put in a robust enough system to survive and be functional for the next 20 years requires, another look. The scope of work, the initial phase of which would be aimed at getting us the information we need to make decisions about the rest of the program. And we're not looking at just what was originally defined as phase 2. That was based on a very early, simple concept. We need to really look at the rest of the program because we're getting into some very challenging areas. And if we don't consider everything, we could possibly preclude options that wouldn't be available to us if we took certain steps without thinking about the rest of it. So there's a lot to resolve, and I think things are going to happen fairly quickly after this meeting because it's in everybody's interest to do so. So I'll get back to the board, as soon as I can, let you know about the progress. So we really have some, I can't answer your question right now because there's just some stakes in the ground. Is
there anything needed from WPCA to move it forward?
Not at this point. Not at this point. It's really, we're asking for some changes in what was the stipulation and direction, and the state has to feel comfortable with that. Totally understand that. We have to implement solutions from a wastewater point of view that are realistic. We want the funding to be minimal, obviously, and cost effective. We've done a really excellent job so far in terms of what we've accomplished for the amount of money that we've spent. Our contractors have really kind of sharpened the pencils and gotten this process down to putting these in at a very reasonable cost. But we have a lot of work left to do. We need conventional work. So if we were to, one of the issues, if we were to put these out in larger contracts, for instance, you might be able to attract some larger contractors. But we like the kind of personal attention that residents have gotten from smaller contractors.
You'll run into the $500,000 cap that
Yeah.
takes into a whole other ballgame.
That's a big issue because the small contractors can't meet that, and the larger contractors don't do this work ordinarily. And the cost is likely to escalate to cover their anticipated, kind of costs of not knowing exactly how to do this. So those are some of the issues that are kind of difficult to resolve and we're working through.
Okay. So where is the holdup here? Is it the state? Is it deep? Is it us? I mean, or is it everyone? Where's, because I don't understand where the holdup
It's
is.
a combination of things.
Combination,
Of
You know,
just
type of
circumstances. I mean,
things.
we've known for a long time we were kind of headed to this point because this program did not implement the way it was originally planned, and it didn't implement easily.
in regards to what? Things like engineered systems and the AT systems, is that where it's at?
No, it just became, when you deal with individual residents as opposed to a project that's in the street, it's much more complex. So doing all of those projects took time, took a lot more work with regard to the contracts, working out who was going to apply, how they got done, a number of issues like that, just in terms of procedures. It hadn't been done before, so.
Yeah, I know, but we've, in my mind, we've accomplished that. We've accomplished that. Going on to phase 2, I mean, we still have a high percentage of conventional systems that we have gotten very good at doing.
Right.
So they're at least half or more.
Yeah, there's no intention to stop that.
Okay, so that's not holding up, that should not be holding up anything that's
It's not.
happening in phase 2. Okay, so What is it? Where is the holdup there?
Well, all along it was intended, the program was based on installing either conventional or advanced treatment systems.
Yes.
The parallel path from the beginning was to develop a permitting process and standards for the advanced treatment systems.
Right.
Which proved to be problematic. So that's not in place, but even if it was, things like sea level rise and coastal storms and a lot of other issues have really kind of exacerbated concerns that were there originally with regard to AC systems. So without knowing what you're gonna do and what community systems might be possible, which were always considered in the beginning, it's time to reevaluate where we are in those areas with regard to the potential for doing any of those things. We also have some properties available to us that won't consider before. So that has to get resolved before.
So is there any possibility of getting some sort of agreement to move forward with conventional systems and work on the
Sure.
AT systems?
Sure.
Is that
That's
going
the
to be part of this?
discussion. That's how are we gonna do that? Because, you know, it all has to work together. The clean water funds are really great benefit for residents, but they come with a whole set of regulations.
Of course they do.
Restrictions. So, you know, it's a process.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, one last thing, from the last meeting, the question about the pump out program, and Robbie has confirmed that the pump out program applies to all residents, not just people in the wastewater management district.
Okay, thanks, Steve. All right, agenda item 8. This is the upgrade standards revision review. It's a public hearing. I'm gonna ask Steve to explain a little bit, and then we can hopefully move that forward.
This is the same as the one
Yeah,
email?
the application is printed or didn't come out highlighted.
Yeah, just to take a step back and remind everybody, the upgrade standards were developed when the program started to be specific to this particular program. And they were, the upgrade standards were a little bit stricter than the public health code. And these were the standards by which we were gonna operate the program. It just came to our attention in terms of, you know, implementing these upgrades, that the leaching section in there needed some clarification with regard to the language in terms of our practices and policies. And so we made some relatively minor changes just for clarification. However, that any changes to the upgrade standards requires a public hearing by policy. So that's the reason for the public hearing. Other than those changes, we changed DEP to D, and there was one clarification in the tank section as well, just to make it again clear that we were crushing in place. And that's about it. One of the things that took so long is we had to have a review by CRAD, by our attorneys, by the state health department, and by DEP, so that everybody had a chance to weigh in on this. And we changed one word and somebody, you know, but yeah. So
Keep going
it took
around
a
and
while.
around. Right. Okay. Anything else on it?
No, I mean, Robbie, I highlighted the changes
Yeah.
so you can look at it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. I think from what's highlighted, I think you can see what was clarified.
All right, so it's ready to go?
Ready to go.
Okay. Then can I have a motion to adopt these changes to the Town of Old Saybrook wastewater upgrade program standards? That's document number 3864921. It's marked as Exhibit A. Its original date was September 2nd, 2009, and the revision date will be when we adopt. Just
So
read
moved.
that.
I'll make that motion to accept.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
All right, is Is there any other questions?
Oh,
Or
what is the motion now to, doesn't this have to go to the public meeting? Or we
This
just
is the
approve?
public hearing for it. This is all we have to do. That's
Okay, all we're doing is saying that this is going to public hearing.
No.
No, this is
This
going
is
to
the
be,
public
this
hearing.
is the public hearing right now.
So if you have any questions on these changes?
It's on the agenda, it's been noticed.
Right. And are we sharing this with the public?
You get a document?
But we can't see it.
Document?
Cavity hearing.
You're welcome to see it.
Unreal.
Is this the way to do it?
This is,
I didn't think so.
here's some more.
Just a housekeeping note on page 2.
Like everything else that's wrong.
Thanks, John.
We need to have a separate
Cheers, John.
paragraph between each installer and member.
Yeah, it says you must put a public hearing, so this is the public hearing.
Am I to assume the only things that have changed are the ones that are yellowed out?
Yes.
That's correct.
Thank you.
It says at the top, the new text is all caps and underlined, and any deleted text is strike through.
And deleted is a strike.
Yes. Okay, are there any other questions on this? Concerns before we take the vote?
Just repeat all those people, all the departments that have looked at this, if you will, just for the benefit of everyone else.
Okay, this has been reviewed by Brad,
Brad, state.
State DPP, how about the Department of Health, and State DPH,
Yes.
our attorneys? And they have all, these changes are an accumulation of all their input, right? Okay. As Steve mentioned, it's really more about housekeeping.
I understand this. I understand this. Because I asked the question doesn't mean that.
No, that's a good
No, it's
question.
good for the
Appreciate it.
record too.
Well, I understand too. The only question is, when did the notice for public hearing? Where is the notice that went out?
The agenda. You read the last paragraph, all that needs to be is the agenda. And the agenda was posted last week.
But how does the public comment on a public hearing if they're never given any information? Until after, now, how is that legal?
There's no comments given.
Oh, unbelievable.
It's the,
So we'll have a little comment.
it's the process
Yeah.
that are in the standards and the regulations, right?
That's it, so last paragraph, that's all we have to do.
Which last paragraph are you referring to?
Of the standards, that's all we have to do.
Can't hear you.
All we have to do is notice it on the agenda, which we did. So my very last paragraph of the update standards.
Okay, thank you, Robert. That, for those that are concerned about this, the existing one, as you can see in the last paragraph on page 8, it says that we may change these at any regular schedule or special meeting of the WPCA, provided it's noticed and on the agenda. And that's all we're doing tonight, is just changing these in accordance with
It's not an
the existing
ordinance,
program.
It's not a referendum, it's an exhibit A, attachment.
Could you just repeat that?
This is not an ordinance or a referendum, this is just an exhibit A attachment to the ordinance. The WPCA can change it whenever they want, as long as we notice it.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Which says by public meeting, and you're splitting hairs and making this the public meeting instead of it going to a true public meeting.
It's in accordance with the standards that are on there
Good
now.
attorney will
the amendment to,
Make sure it doesn't happen.
in order to change this, as part, this is the existing standard where the yellow part's changed. The current standard says we can change it by noticing it at a regular WPCA meeting, and that's all we're doing. We're just changing this so that it's more in line. Things like the DEP has been changed to the DEEP. That's all. I mean, most of it. Steve, anything? There's nothing substantive.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna put it to a vote. All those in favor of accepting this, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
There's some people that
Abstain? Okay, thanks.
Right, exactly. I just don't realize.
All right.
Efficiency.
All right, agenda item 9, old business. Can we jump right into construction management costs, or do we have anything else?
We can go right into benefit assessment.
Let's jump right into the construction management costs and the benefit assessment. All right, Gracious has prepared a number of documents related to all the comments that have been made and all proposals from our last meeting, from our various public discussions of this process. Gracia, would you just walk through those? Just bring us up to speed where we are and what, it's really the 4-page document dated 12/10/2014.
Okay. Board requested a break.
Pardon, we need to end, we need to formally end the public session. No, okay, thank you. Sorry.
That's okay, good
No
question.
problem. The board requested a schedule of costs for the engineering for the specific focus areas such as Saybrook Acres 1, 2, 3, 4, Thompson, Oyster River 1, 2, 3, Cornfield Park 1, 2, 3, Fenwood 1 and 2. So that the first piece of paper you got was a breakout of those dollars. These are, and they're broken out by the categories under which they were billed by Fuss and O'Neill. Data capture, design conventional upgrades, bid process for system upgrades, reimbursable expenses. The column that's credit adjustments, that $10,929.62 in Saybrook Acres 1, was part of a bill that we chose not to pay due to plan errors. So, and the next column is the total for each focus area. There was some discussion that Saybrook Acres 1, 2, and 3 fell into that category where DEEP required 2 engineering plans per property, and the cost reflected that work. Frankly, I took a direct approach because all of this is extremely arbitrary anyway. And I took 50% of the cost for Saybrook Acres 1 and 50% of the total cost for Saybrook Acres 2 and 3 as an equalization number. And I put that in that's your last column. You're gonna see those numbers again. So it reduced Saybrook Acres from 92,000 and change to 46,000 and change. It Saybrook Acres 2 and 3 from 135,000 and change to 67,000 and change. The next, hang on, fingers don't work. The next paper was, we when we went back to review the whole thing one more time, we found an additional, 2,434.14 under CRAD that we did not feel, under the criteria that we had set previously, that it should be part of a residence obligation as it pertained to legal costs for memorandums of understanding and that sort of thing. So this is a layout of what the revised reduction schedule should be for CRAD. Okay, the next page is targeted reductions that include an additional reduction for CRAD and results in a per property cost, and we're gonna round these figures, whatever figures you choose. So, with the additional deduction for the MOA legal, the per property cost was $1,156. The next piece of paper includes not only the reduction for CRAD, but it includes the reductions as an equalization factor for Saybrook Acres 1, Saybrook Acres 2 and 3. This results in a per property cost of $975. And the final piece of paper are the proposed motions for tonight. Obviously, the first one deals with hard cost assessments. We have a small number left over from Fenwood and a few outliers from Oyster River East 3. And the second one is, these are proposed benefit assessments. You're not voting to assess, you're not voting to levy, you're voting for a proposed number.
Which is the number that gets presented at the public meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
And there are all sorts of documents that go out to the affected residents. There are legal notices in the paper that they'll be in the Harbor News that pertain to affected residents. And it is on advice of counsel, I know I put in my email, that hard cost assessments should be levied separately from soft cost or construction management cost assessments. It's a good thing because our software doesn't combine them anyway. What you need to do with the second motion is just insert the number of your choice.
Okay.
So what will happen is that these proposed benefit assessments will go to in a memorandum to the town clerk, and they will be on file there. They will be published in the Harbor News, and these are the numbers that you will be voting to levy at the public hearing on the 9th of February.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to summarize all of this, where we are, and correct me at any time, anybody on board, jump right in. We started with total soft costs, $3,150,782.23. That was our total soft cost. That, under the original program, was going to be put over to the residents.
50% of that number.
Right, 50% of it. But starting with the $3,150,000, we identified $2,424,793 that we did not feel belonged to the residents. And after discussions with the first selectman agreed that they would be picked up by the general town budget. Which-
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
There's two, I think first, we need to decide if we're gonna use the one with the,
I'm getting to that.
you're gonna get there. Okay. All right,
Okay.
as long as you're getting there.
Right. We then had that discussion at a couple of our meetings, and one of the concerns that was heard very, very loud and clear by the residents was that the engineering costs of Saybrook Acres 1, 2, and 3 were doubled because there was a requirement for 2 plans. So in the latest scenario, you've taken the cost of engineering from Saybrook Acres 1, 2, and 3 and reduced it by 50%. So we have identified all of the costs for engineering, and they were, as you mentioned, $92,404. That has been reduced to $46,000. The $135,000 for engineering costs of Saybrook Acres 2 and 3 has been reduced by 50% to $67,603. So in addition, there's another $120,000 more removed from that. So that changes the targeted reductions from $2,424,000 to $2,538,000 in the latest assessment, in the latest scenario. And that should cover the concerns about why are the engineering costs double? Why should I pay for 2 engineering costs when they weren't used? And then the future, all of the other phases afterwards did not have to pay that. So that brings us to where we are now with the latest proposal on the table with a per property cost of $975. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yeah, give it.
Okay. All right. Is there any questions, concerns, comments moving forward with that? If somebody wants to make a motion now, we can do that, or we
Yeah,
can-
I think we're almost ready for a motion. I just want to make some comments here. And they're more towards maybe the public than to us, because we have looked at those numbers. But I just want to go over the last columns here. These are reductions. The $2.5 million, we started off with over $3 million in sub costs, and we're dropping off $2.5 million from that to get it down to $612,000. Just an idea of some of the reductions that some of the things that were taken out here. And this is there's 3 different areas here. One is engineering, one is legal, and CRAD. And there's 4 areas.
Thank you.
WPCA administration, okay, there's 4 areas, okay. So, in Fuss and O'Neill, $865,000 that has been paid have been taken out of that figure. So, the residents are not paying anything of that $865,000, which was kind of interesting. Legal costs, a total of $607,000 have been taken out of that $3 million. And this is for things like the Clean Water Fund General Pre-Design. This was setting up the whole program at the beginning. $607,000 in legal costs over 3 years is what was spent, and that's all been taken out of that benefit assessment. The last area was CRAD, which is the public health, some of which you have to pay anyway, but there were certain things in there that that were taken out, like, $16,000 for Maple Avenue, which is really in phase 2, and some other things that came out. The last item, the 4th item, in WPCA administration, and that is in the crews and the the staff. $1,026 was, or no, $226,000 was taken out. So that's how we got to $2.5 million down from the $3 million that we started from. And we end up with $974, which is half of the $600. $974 each, which is a very, very fair number. I think that going forward, and I'm hoping we're making the transition from soft costs, and the soft cost word is gonna disappear from our vocabulary, and we're gonna call it what it is, mostly construction management expense. That's why you see the little difference on the agenda here. So soft costs may go away. But this is a very, very fair, I think, compromise here. It would have never happened without the first selectman's support, I can tell you that. So, pardon me? And correct me if I'm wrong, but they will have this document when it goes to the,
No,
what document will they have when we get to,
it would just show the amount. that
just
was
gonna show
charged.
the amount what we're being charged?
When we do hard cost assessments, we send out, and you would have received one.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, the breakdown of how we got it and then what it means in terms of. We will do something similar for everyone for soft costs. We have not fleshed that out, but everyone will get something. I suspect that it will show the total without the detail.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, just to get it on one piece of paper, so everyone will get, but they will get that prior to the public hearing. The public hearing will only be copies of what has been in the newspaper. We find it much more effective to try and communicate directly to the individual residents, to let them know, because then if there's a problem or confusion or something, they'll call, and we can either fix or clarify or whatever needs to be done.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. It's a good summary of, the costs. Thanks. Okay, are we, any other concerns, or do we want to move forward?
I'm ready to go.
And we need two motions tonight. We need the motion to file, to direct the financial manager to prepare the benefit assessment
Yeah.
for the phase one construction hard cost assessment for those that have not been done yet. And then we need a second motion to direct the financial manager to prepare a proposed benefit assessment for the construction management costs. And Bob, great point on that as well. We do need to eliminate the term soft costs from our
Yeah,
vocabulary.
we've just been talking about it for so long that it's.
We can start that now.
Well, you notice that I put construction
Yes, you did.
management costs
I see that.
in.
Thank you.
And we need to put, and we would like to round that up. It was 974.81. So if we could please round that up to either 975 or leave it at 974, I don't care.
Unless somebody wants to go back to the original one and not equalize the engineering. Okay, I did think so.
My opinion is 975 is a good number.
$175. All right.
And then I reluctantly remind Mr. Gwiz and Mr. Singer they can't vote.
Okay, good point. And also, just a quick note, Gracia, thank you. I know there's been a lot of back and forth on this, and you've spent a lot of time, so thank you. All right, is there a motion out here, both one at a time, please?
I'd like to make a motion to direct the financial manager to prepare a proposed benefit assessment memorandum to the Old Saybrook Town Clerk listing the remaining phase one construction hard cost assessments.
A second?
Any further discussion, or comments, or concerns? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstained, yes.
Okay. Sorry, there's 2 abstentions.
Did you abstain, George, or did you vote again?
He didn't vote. He did not vote. All right, thank you. Okay, and as for the second one, is there a motion to make the next, we'll make the next motion.
We'll make a motion to direct the financial manager to prepare a proposed benefit assessment memorandum for the Old Saybrook Town Clerk, listing a Phase 1 proposed per property assessment of $975 for construction management costs.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstained.
Abstained.
Okay, very good. Is there anything else under old business? Okay. Any new business? Very quiet. Excellent. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting at 8:50 PM.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.